Hi, I'm Amanda, and welcome to this gentle seated practice for the lower body. We'll be working through a series of poses and movements that work the feet, the legs, a little bit of the lower back, and hopefully this will feel nice for you. As always with our yoga practices, make sure you're listening to your own body. If you feel pain or anything that's really uncomfortable, please stop what you're doing and come back into the practice when you're ready. So let's begin by making sure you have a stable chair and it's something that's not too rickety and you feel comfortable on. You can place your feet on the floor. If your feet don't reach the floor, you can always have a blanket or blocks underneath of them to help with that. And let's do a little foot warm up so that we make sure that the different parts of our feet are kind of warmed up and energized for the other poses and movements that we'll do. So you could start by raising and lowering the toes, one foot at a time or both feet at the same time. And when you raise the toes, could you actually spread them out like a fan? So if they were your hands and you spread your fingers out like a fan, that's something that we can try to do. It's a challenge sometimes, but we can try to do that with our toes. And at least wiggle the toes around to some degree. Then you could also raise the heel off the floor, so you could do that one at a time or both heels at the same time. You're starting to stretch your arch. You might feel that in your calf muscles. And then you could even raise the toes and then the heels and go back and forth, almost like you're rocking back and forth on the foot. And then placing the foot down, you could even move your knees from side to side and start to feel the inside and the outside edges of the foot. Now you could take one foot and slide it forward. It can stay on the ground if you like, flexing the ankle. And so the toes are actually pointing more up towards the sky, and then pointing the toes. So it doesn't have to be a beautiful ballerina style of pointing the toes, but just moving the toes so that they're reaching more down towards the mat or the floor. And then go back and forth. So flexing the foot and pointing, and flexing the foot and pointing. Back and forth, and then you could even give yourself a rotation at the ankle. If you'd like to keep your foot on the floor, when you do that, you could keep the ball of the foot on the floor and take a rotation, just getting that ankle moving, and then going the other way, and then bringing it down. So we'll do those with the other foot. So bringing the foot a little bit forward, flexing at the ankle, toes are pointing a little bit more towards the sky, and then bringing the toes to point further down towards the mat. And up and down, and up and down. Your foot can be off the floor any amount if you like, or you can keep it on the floor. Then you could take a rotation of the ankle one way and the other way. Again, if you wish, you can keep the ball of the foot on the floor and rotate the ankle that way. And then placing both feet down onto the floor, bringing one leg out a little bit straighter in front of you, and you may wish to come a little closer to the edge of your seat, but make sure you're still feeling stable, and you could even hold on to the sides of the chair if that's helpful. So we're going to be doing a hamstring stretch. The preparation is to start, you're facing forward, so inhale, get a little bit taller. So think about bringing the crown of your head a little closer up to the sky, allowing that spine to feel nice and long and straight, and we're going to keep a straight spine as we hinge from the hips and start to move the torso forward. So it's like your chest is coming a little bit closer to your thighs, but you don't have to go very far. And in fact, you should stop the movement once you feel the stretch behind the hamstring. So we don't want to force anything or cause any pain, but we do want to keep a long straight back. You've hinged at the hip. You're trying not to round over. You're staying nice and straight. You may be gazing a few feet in front of you towards the floor. And you're feeling that stretch behind your hamstring. So one more breath here. And release. And then bringing the foot back, placing the sole of the foot on the floor, and we'll go to the other side. So bringing the other leg out, long, heel is on the floor, foot is flexed. Preparing our upper body, so on the inhale, get taller. On the exhale, hinge at the hips to lean a little bit forward. You might not be moving very much. You're stopping when you feel that hamstring stretch. And we'll just hold it here for one more breath. So inhaling and exhaling. And then coming back up to sit and bringing the foot in. So we're working up into our knees, and we'll be bringing one knee a little bit higher and then lowering it down. And so of course we're not just moving the knee, we're also moving the quadricep. We're feeling the hip joint working for us. The foot is coming on and off of the floor. So we're doing a few things here, and feel free to use your hands to pull the knee up. It doesn't have to go high at all. It can just be off the floor any amount. Maybe even your toes could stay on the floor if you like. So a couple more of those. And if you wish, you could actually lean down and get a little closer to your knee with your head. One at a time, of course. One at a time. And if you really want to ham it up, you could kiss your knee or kiss in the direction of your knee. And it's to show all the love we have for our knees because they do so much for us. So kiss, we love our knees, we love our knees, we love our knees, we love our knees. So, just a nice little reminder of how much we love our knees. So we do tend to focus a lot in these practices on the quadriceps. So even that raising the knees is an example of how our quadriceps are working for us. Quadriceps help us with walking, with balance, stepping up onto a curb, walking up a set of stairs. And so for that reason, they're called the muscles of independence. And especially because strong quadriceps are really critical for fall prevention. So we all want to prevent ourselves from having falls, and having strong, at the ready quadriceps is one of the ways we can do it. So on that note, feel free to pick up your knees and feet off the floor and do a little stomping. We're using our quads, we're working on strength. And if you're making a little bit of noise, that's a good thing. So stomp, stomp, stomp to the degree you want to, as long as it feels good. And you could even go faster and faster and faster. How fast can you go? And stop. Great. So I'm just going to move my chair for the next couple of poses. You can stay where you are, facing the device that you're watching this on. So first we will do some hip openers. So again, another joint that's super important for us. We've covered ankles and knees, and now we're up into our hips. There's a lot of different ways you can open up your hips, and just a reminder that really you can do this almost at any time during the day that you're sitting. You could heel toe, heel toe, heel toe, one hip out to the side, and maybe it doesn't go very far, and that's fine. And back in, you can experiment. So we're kind of opening up to the side and then bringing it back in. You could also open up to the side, and you could try a hip circle. So maybe the foot comes off the floor, or maybe it stays on the floor, but you're really working the hip joint, moving the leg, and you can always assist with your hand, moving the leg around in a circle and then going in the other direction. So those of us who do a lot of sitting during the day can definitely say we've felt it in our hip flexors at times when you're trying to get up or do something and you're just sort of crunched because you've been in the same position all day, and your hip flexors in particular have, taken that position and they don't want to let go. So doing some hip openers is often a good solution for that kind of feeling. So moving the other leg out to the side. Again, it doesn't have to go far. Maybe walking it back and forth a couple times, maybe lifting it up and having it go back and forth, out and in, and then perhaps taking it around in a circle. And again, foot can stay on the mat. You can still feel the hip working in a rotation even when your toes are on the mat. And going to the other side, okay? And then bringing that to a close. So the next exercise moves a few different parts of our body. It's called the hip glide. And I recommend that you go side saddle on your chair. So if the chair's facing forward and so are you would heel toe yourself, move the feet around so that you're sitting almost like side saddle on a horse. In this position, you can hold on to the back of your chair, and that's really important for this pose because we will be moving and you want to make sure that you're very, very balanced and stable, okay? So just like we did with the hip opener, you can move the front leg, opening it to the side to whatever amount that you think feels right for you. If you wish, it can come behind you and the knee can actually point a little bit towards the floor. The foot is still attached to the floor with the toes. And if this is the position you're taking, you can even drop the hip off the front of the chair and go here. But again, if you're feeling like a smaller range of motion today, just keep the leg in the place where you feel the most comfortable, okay? So setting up, we have our lower body, and then bringing the hand to the top of the shoulder. And you'll be facing forward, so you're looking actually to the side. You're still holding on to the back of the chair. You're going to do that for the whole exercise. That's important. So on the inhale, you're going to raise the elbow and bend laterally. Remember that side stretch of the spine in towards the chair. And you can even look up. And then on the exhale, the elbow comes down. It points towards the floor. Your gaze is also towards the floor. And that's lateral bend of the spine to the other side. So let's try that again. So inhale, gazing up. Exhale, gazing down. And one more time. Inhale, gazing up. And exhale, gazing down. And then coming back to center, and then carefully moving yourself back onto your chair first. And then we'll move our feet around to the other side. So we're going to sit side saddle, but going in the other direction. Okay? So making sure you're solidly on your chair. Experimenting with opening that hip and figuring out where you'd like to place it for this pose. Again, it can be a little closer to the front. It can be a little further back. If so, maybe you're dropping the hip off of the chair. You're holding on to the back of your chair, if you remember, and then hand comes to the shoulder, facing forward. On the inhale, elbow comes up, lateral stretch, maybe gazing up. And then exhale, elbow comes down towards the floor, gazing towards the floor. And again, so inhale, gazing up. And exhale, gazing down. And one more time, inhale, gazing up. It's really nice to do these slowly. You can really experience them. And inhale, gazing down. Then coming back to center, carefully lifting yourself back onto the chair and slowly bringing your legs around to the front again. So we have a pose next called pigeon, and we're doing seated pigeon, obviously. And to do that, there are different ways to do it. So one way would be taking your right leg and crossing the ankle, and you could do your seated pigeon from this pose. If you wish, if you have the flexibility, you could bring the foot up to rest on the knee, flexing the foot, maybe holding on to the sides of your chair if you want that for stability. And if just doing this position, or if you're at the ankle, if that's enough for you, then just stay there. Try to work on having a long, straight spine. We have this habit to round over, but we're trying to test some of those habits and maybe develop new ones. So trying to think about the crown of the head reaching up towards the sky. If you'd like a little more, you could inhale, get taller. Exhale, start to bring your torso forward, but you're hinging at the hips. Again, you're not rounding over. You're keeping a straight spine, you're hinging at the hips, and it may just be a small movement that you're moving forward, and you'll know it when you feel the stretch in the side of your thigh there. It might be your IT band, your quadricep muscles engaging. And one more breath, and release, and then sit back up and uncurl your legs, maybe shake them out. And then we'll go to the other side. So again, the other leg either comes across at the ankle or comes up onto the thigh. Foot is flexed, getting ready. I'm going to do mine with the crossed ankle this time to show that. So inhale, get taller, and exhale, hinge at the hips to lean forward and feel that stretch. One more breath here. And then come up to sit, release the cross, and shake out anything that needs shaking. So now we have a kind of a fun movement as our last pose today. Does anybody know what the name of the dance was from the 1920s, where their flappers were doing it and it was considered scandalous and boisterous? You got it, the Charleston. So feet can be about hips width distance apart, hands can be towards your knees. And what we're going to be doing is bringing the knees together and apart and together and apart. So one way to do that, you could keep your feet fully on the floor. You could also lift your heels a little bit to get a little bit more movement there. And you see how it's really the hip joint that's doing a lot of the movement. And then at the same time, we're going to be crossing our hands, and you could switch them, cross one way and then cross the other way. So it involves a little bit of coordination, but it's fun. And so the movement would look like this. So cross and open, cross and open. And if you can remember the music that people would do the Charleston to way back when, please hum it to yourself. But let's get started. So can you go a little faster? A little faster, and a little faster, and a little faster, and then stop. So it's a challenge to keep the hands and knees moving in the way that you want them to, but it's a fun challenge. So that brings our gentle seated yoga practice for the lower body to a close today. Maybe you bring your hands to heart center. Maybe you nod your head towards your hands to seal in your practice. And take one more breath together. So inhaling and exhaling. And I thank you for being here, and hope to see you next time on the mat and on the chair.